lovers, welcome to Uncommon Reader. I'm Daniela. Thanks for stopping by today. I've been missing in action for a few extra days here on the channel. I'm kind of busy with a few different projects, so I might not be as consistent in the beginning of the year here on the channel, but please do stick around. I was actually supposed to work on a wrap-up of my first winter reads today, but I confess I felt a bit overwhelmed having to prepare to speak about a variety of books, so I decided to keep it minimal and just talk about one book that actually made me think it could start an interesting conversation. And it's a conversation that it may not be unheard of, and I apologize for in case it is. But this book I read in December really got me wondering, and so I hope you can answer some questions. If you are a creator, please feel free to reply to this video with your own video. And if you are a simple viewer, I would love to hear your comments on the topic that inspired me reading Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. I was quite shocked reading this book, and it was my first time reading it. I was drawn to this book because of the beautiful illustrations by Arthur Rackman and F.D. Redford, but especially Rackman's ones are beautiful. And I was expecting a very whimsical tale of fairy tales flying and very fun adventures. But I found this book filled with violence, not only physical, but also a quite disturbing psychological violence. For example, Peter Pan flies away from his home, from the comfort of his little room and his loving mother, and sets for very disturbing adventures at Kensington Garden. And then when he wants to return home, he finds his mother's home window closed, and she's happily holding another baby. So of course he feels rejected and unloved, and I mean, what a trauma, very traumatic book. I found myself asking, if I had kids, would I want them to read this book? What is this book teaching to kids? So don't get me wrong, I'm not banning this book at all, because I feel that Barrie wrote such a unique story. But I was thinking, yeah, what is this book teaching to kids? But I'm saying this having zero experience with kids. I have no kids of my own. I have no nephews that are blood related. I am not a psychiatrist. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a pediatrician. So I probably just have very little experience as a babysitter when I was in my late teens. So I'm asking you, what are you thinking about such violence in literature for children? Because I've never thought about this, but thinking back on other fairy tales that I may have read or just know about because our grandmother or mothers would tell us the stories, for example, of Little Red Riding Hood. Lost in the forest, meeting the wolf that will eat her grandmother, or Hansel and Gretel left in the woods again by their parents, and then finding that cute gingerbread house just to learn that belongs to a cannibalistic witch. I mean, such horrors. I am really thinking about all these stories, and I don't remember what effect they had on me as a kid, But as an adult, I am thinking, are these the right stories? Is violence so necessary, and why it was so present in these fairy tales? But then I thought about a recent episode regarding children's literature. So I went online and I did some research because I really wanted to expand the topic to other types of censorships. And if you remember, in 2023, and I'm quoting the Standard right now, the British publisher Puffin Books, part of Penguin Random House, and the Roald Dahl Story Company announced that they had worked with sensitivity readers to rewrite portions of many of Dahl's classic children's novels. The goal, the publisher said, was to remove or alter words and descriptions that could be considered offensive today, such as references to being fat or ugly, certain phrases about gender and race, and other wording seen as problematic for modern readers. On Wikipedia, I found these changes affected many of Dahl's most famous titles, with hundreds of edits in total. For example, changing character descriptions, altering phrases about physical appearances, and adjusting gendered language. From Sky News, the rewrites were widely criticized as unnecessary censorship of beloved classics. Prominent authors like Salman Rushdie called the changes absurd censorship, and public figures, including the UK Prime Minister at the time, Rishi Sunak, weighed in on the debate. From Forbes, many readers and critics argued that classic literature should be preserved in its original form, preserving the author's voice and the historical context in which it was written. Others said the changes were too heavy-handed and altered the tone and humor that made Dahl's books distinctive. So the aftermath, it's this. The publisher partly reversed course. They announced plans to make both the edited modern versions and the original text available to readers so they could choose which one to use. So we're talking about a different type of violence, right? Here we're talking about being ugly or being fat, so that's more psychological type of violence. So I'm sure this topic of Dahl's re-editing ignited a lot of discussions on BookTube and everywhere in schools and in houses. Interrupting from my editing desk, there is a little corrupted file, so I had to reshoot this, and it's quite important as I was introducing another type of censorship on children's literature, which relates to diversity. So I'm quoting other sources. And here's another segment from People. High-profile bans of specific children's titles. Certain specific books aimed at children have been removed or restricted in some educational systems. Actress Julianne Moore said her book Freckle-Faced Strawberry had been banned from some U.S. Department of Defense schools as part of a broader purge of materials seen as promoting diversity or gender ideology. In Australia, in 2024, a controversial ban briefly removed same-sex parenting books from public libraries in Sydney, sparkling debates about censorship and inclusion. The ban was later lifted. From AP News, in the US, organizations like the American Library Association and PEN America report thousands of book removal instances in school libraries, with a disproportionate number targeting books with LGBTQ plus themes or characters of color. That's quite disturbing for sure. Local library controversies over inclusive picture books. There have been dramatic flashpoints at the local level involving children's books with transgender or other LGBTQ plus themes. In North Carolina, a children's picture book about a transgender boy, Call Me Max, if I find the cover, I'll add it here, led to the dissolution of a county library board after the board refused to remove it from shelves. Good for you. A rare and extreme reaction in the censorship debate. Schools and curriculum restrictions. In addition to library bans, school districts have sometimes been pressured to remove or restrict children's books from classrooms or reading lists due to political or cultural concerns, especially relating to, again, LGBTQ plus content or discussions of race or gender. This encompasses broader US debates over book policies in schools. The bigger picture is many of these controversies feed into larger cultural discussions about what's appropriate for children to read. Who gets to decide? Parents, schools, libraries, governments, diversity and representation in literature, free speech versus protections of young readers. So yeah, these are really important questions. I have no background for answering any of these questions, so I would love to hear from you. What I can say from my heart is that I'm quite disturbed by the violence and the psychological violence of some classic books. You know, this thing just started from reading Peter Pan, and then I remembered all the memories that I have from my experience as a reader or a listener to fairy tales as a kid. But I am definitely open to kids reading about diversity and about inclusion, because this is what society should do in today's world. And honestly, I feel kids have such an open heart and an open mind. Just think about how easy for them is to learn languages, right? And so I think that they would clearly accept that type of message. Man, especially nowadays with the troubling news coming from USA and then the words here and there, it's such a mad world. So why not teaching acceptance, love, unity, community to kids? That's so important. So I hope you'll respond in the comments, and creators, with maybe a video about this topic. And thank you so much for being with me today. I hope to see you back on Uncommon Reader. I hope very soon. Let's see. Take care for now. Happy reading. Ciao.